Let's draw a strawberry today, just using colour pencils and no solvent. And if you're new here, welcome. I'm Lisa and I specialise mainly on wildlife art using colour pencils. But lately on Patreon we've been adding more variety with some food themed tutorials and even a bit of watercolour here and there. Today we're going to draw a juicy, realistic strawberry using colour pencils. No solvent, no fancy tools, just the Faber-Castell 60 set. So if you've got that set at home, you're all set to follow along. If not, just pick up some similar colours, any will do. This one's perfect for beginners. I'll be showing you everything step by step, focusing on layering, texture, and building that lovely rich colour with all the basic pencil techniques. And if you'd like to see the full real-time version with no time lapses or cuts, that's available on Patreon. You can draw along with me at your own pace and see exactly how I build up the colours from start to finish. I'll put a link in the description below. So grab your pencils, get comfy, and let's bring this strawberry to life together. So this is the reference photo that we used for this piece. And one of the hardest things about this whole thing is probably the placement of where all of the shadows are and all of the little seeds on the strawberry. So make sure you have a really good outline, something that you can erase as you go, but you want to make sure that it's clear so you can sort of see where everything is. Also remember with this sort of thing, if you're putting things a little bit in the wrong spot, like one seed is a little bit to the left, like no one's going to know if there's anything in the wrong spot. As long as it sort of looks realistic, it's going to be fine, but you generally want to have the right place for things because it's just good practice. So for when you're doing pet portraits or commissions or anything like that, you just want to make sure you have things in the right place. So the first thing I'm going to do is just go in with my light yellow ochre and start to map in where you can see all of those little seeds. I'm also going into the middle of these with some cream, just because it's a little bit lighter in some of the sections and they're all not a dark yellow colour. And then we're going to go in with some of the deep scarlet red and just go around where you can see some of the darkest sections underneath and around the seed. So make sure to have your reference photo up on the screen or next to you so you can have a look and follow along with the reference photo so you can see where the darkest and lightest sections are. This section's a little bit strange because it's sort of a reflection off the table, so it's sort of like a pastel pink colour. And then we can go in with some of the dark red and a really sharp black pencil just to go around each of these seeds, and I've also added some of the Van Dyke brown as well. So like I said before, this section is a little bit pinky, so we went in with some of the rose carmine, just went around all of these seeds, trying to pay attention where you can see those really highlight sections and go around them. Also added in some of the pale geranium lake. And then to blend this down and make it nice and smooth, you can use some of your polychromos white as well. It's really hard to judge how light and dark we need to make this section until we have more of the strawberry in. So what we're going to do next is just go really sharp with our Van Dyke brown pencil and begin to put in the next section of seeds. Then just going in really lightly with the base of the rose carmine, which is that pinky colour, and then starting to get darker with the pale geranium lake. So the pale geranium lake is a little bit of an orangey pinky colour. So with colour pencils, we're always building up light to dark generally. So what we want to do is make sure that we're going with really light layers. Make sure to have your reference photo up where you can see it, and we're just going into the darkest sections first, putting those down to map in where you can see the darkest sections. And because this sort of thing is so intricate with so many light and dark sections, such little details, we really need to pay attention to the reference photo and go through and do each section just one at a time. Making sure that you're going in with really light layers will ensure that you can get a couple of layers down of pencil and you can change things where you need to. If you're going with too hard a pressure, it's really hard to get it up or make it lighter if you need to. So it's just really important to use a really light pressure and pay attention to your reference photo. So just focus on one little seed at a time. Look at where you can see the darkest section, and where you can see the lightest section, I'm going with some of the polychromos white just to blend down that pale geranium lake and the rose carmine. Some of the seeds are darker than others as well, so you want to make sure you're paying attention to that. Make sure to have a really sharp black pencil. I really recommend using a sandpaper sharpener because you can get a really sharp tip with this sharpener. So I also just wanted to bring your attention back to the very bottom of the strawberry that we completed to start with. See how now that we've put in the darker section at the top, the bottom section is just far too light. Like I was explaining before, sometimes you need to have more of the piece in before you can sort of judge the darker and lighter values. and how saturated everything needs to get. It is better sometimes just to go lighter to start with, because you can always make things darker. It does take a little bit of time if you need to go back over things, but it just means that you're going to get the values correct if you're waiting to have most of the piece in before you start to judge all the values and try and fix things up. But first we'll move on to the next section. So just using some of that dark Naples yellow just to put in some of the seeds that you can see, and then going around with the Van Dyke brown and the black just to put in those little darker areas and the shadows around each of the seeds. And then I'm going through with some of the rose carmine and just putting in where you can see those light pink, then blending it down with the polychromos white to make it all nice and smooth. So then this section has quite a lot of orange in it, so we go in with the base of the cadmium orange and then start to blend over some of that pale geranium lake, which is the sort of reddy orangey red color. Again, making sure to pay attention where you can see the light and dark areas. You can use the polychromos white to go over where the lightest sections are and start to get darker with the pale geranium lake, deep scarlet red, and adding in some of the dark red in the darkest sections. Then next we're going to add in the little leaves that you can see on the top, and I really love the colors that we chose for this one. So it was the pine green, the juniper green, adding in some of the warm gray too. And then we also added in some of the darker red colors that we've already used in the strawberry, including some of the yellow, the dark Naples yellow and the cream. Using the polychromos white to blend it down, make it all nice and smooth. And then once it's all in, what I did and what we talk about in the tutorial is that I took a photo of my strawberry, put it up on the screen on my laptop, up against the reference photo, so we can see the values and judge where we need to get a little bit darker. What I also did is explain how to put the photos into black and white, and this is when you can really judge the dark and lighter values on the strawberry. You can even sort of squint your eyes a little bit at the screen, and it helps you sort of see the lighter and darker areas. And you can see on the right hand side where my strawberry is, it is definitely not dark enough down the bottom, and the contrast between the bottom section and the sort of middle top left section is far too much of a contrast. Like you can really see where it goes from lighter to darker, but in the reference photo it sort of blends in a lot better than what mine does. So this just gives you a really good idea that you can always put your pieces into black and white so you can judge the darker and lighter values. Because we're doing realism, it doesn't really matter about the colors that you're using, it more just matters about the values, so the lighter and darker sections on your piece, and that's what's going to make it look realistic. So we're wanting to make sure we're getting the values right, even if we're not getting the colors right. So then at the end of the piece, this is when we can go over and start to make all those changes that we've noticed by comparing the reference photo with our piece. I also went into the bottom section and added a little shadow just so it's not sort of floating in mid-air. And then I know at the part of this piece I said that we're not going to be using any sort of special tools or anything, but there is just one tool that I used at the end just to make sure you're getting those really bright highlights, and it's a white gel pen. Any sort of white gel pen will do, just going in and dotting this down really sparingly where you can see the biggest highlight sections. It'll just help to add in those really little highlight sections and really make them stand out, but it's definitely not needed. You can always use your polychromos white if you like as well, and just using the negative space method where you're not going into the white highlights will help this anyway. But I really hope that you like this video. Remember to like and subscribe if you would like to complete this in real time with all of the materials that you need to complete it. In the description below will be a link to my Patreon. I really hope that you like this one, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks guys.